In the austere confines of a Manhattan luxury penthouse, the fragile balance of power is upended by a simple act of a child. A 5-year-old girl, accompanying her mother, a cleaning lady, offers a lollipop to the penthouse's cold and feared billionaire owner. This seemingly innocent gesture shatters the silence of a prejudice-filled hallway and sets in motion an extraordinary chain of events. What begins as a moment of kindness becomes a powerful confrontation that exposes a hidden network of systemic discrimination and proves that true worth is not measured by wealth, but by dignity and the courage to stand against injustice. No one dared speak to the millionaire until the black cleaning lady's daughter offered him a lollipop. "Get that child out of here now." Mr. Sterling's shout echoed through the penthouse hallway, causing Elena Sanchez to cower as she held her 5-year-old daughter's hand tightly. "This is no place for people like you to be walking around with children." The building manager of Manhattan's most luxurious building was red with rage, pointing an accusing finger at little Mia, who held a colorful lollipop and watched everything with wide eyes. It was only her second day accompanying her mother to work after the daycare center closed due to non-payment. Elena Sanchez, 28, never imagined that accepting that job as a cleaning lady in billionaire Mr. Harrison's penthouse would become a daily lesson in humiliation. The salary was double what she could get anywhere else, but the emotional toll was becoming unbearable. "Mr. Sterling, please," Elena whispered, keeping her voice down so as not to wake her boss, who was working in his office. "She's quiet. She won't bother anyone. Her school closed and I have no one to leave her with." "I don't care," Mr. Sterling spat the words with disdain. "A slum kid has no place in a $15 million penthouse. Mr. Harrison pays for professional services, not daycare." Mia clutched the lollipop to her chest, her large, intelligent eyes taking in every poisonous word. Even at 5, she understood perfectly when someone was being cruel to her mother. It was at that moment that a door opened silently at the end of the hallway. Mr. Harrison, the most feared man on Wall Street, watched the scene with an indecipherably neutral expression. At 42, his presence alone was enough to make executives tremble, and his $8 billion fortune had been built on a reputation for being absolutely ruthless in business. Mr. Sterling hadn't noticed him yet, continuing his show of authority. "If it happens again, you're fired. Got that? And don't bother crying or making a scene, because people like you are a dime a dozen." "People like us?" Elena's voice came out firmer than she had intended. For the first time, she lifted her chin and looked directly into the manager's eyes. "Can you explain exactly what you mean by that?" Mr. Sterling smiled cruelly, unaware that he was being watched. "You know very well what I meant. You should be grateful for the opportunity to work in a place like this instead of making demands." The silence that followed was broken only by the almost imperceptible sound of expensive footsteps approaching on the marble floor of the hallway. Mr. Harrison was walking slowly toward the group, his icy blue eyes fixed on Mr. Sterling. Mia, who had been silent, suddenly let go of her mother's hand and took a few steps toward the tall man in the impeccable suit. With the innocence typical of a child, she held out her colorful lollipop toward him. "Would you like a piece of my lollipop?" she asked in her sweet, clear voice. "Mommy always says that sharing candy makes people less angry." The world seemed to freeze at that moment. Mr. Sterling paled when he noticed Mr. Harrison there. Elena held her breath, and something very strange happened to the billionaire's normally cold expression. For a moment that lasted an eternity, Mr. Harrison looked at the little girl with her lollipop offered, then at her mother trying to protect her, and finally at Mr. Sterling, who was now sweating coldly. There, in that marble hallway where prejudice had just revealed itself in all its cruelty, something was about to change forever. And while everyone watched in silence, Mr. Harrison did something no one had ever seen him do before. Mr. Harrison slowly bent down to Mia's height, accepting the lollipop with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with his ruthless reputation. "Thank you," he said simply, his deep voice echoing through the silent hallway. Mr. Sterling felt the blood freeze in his veins. 20 years managing luxury properties, and he had never seen the feared billionaire interact with any child, let alone accept something from someone he considered inappropriate for that environment. "Mr. Harrison," Mr. Sterling stammered, breaking into a cold sweat. I was just explaining the building rules to the employee. We don't want situations like this to happen again. Mr. Harrison rose slowly, his icy blue eyes fixed on Mr. Sterling with an intensity that made the manager take a step back. Situations like this, he repeated, his voice low and controlled. Could you be more specific about what exactly the problem is? Elena watched the scene with a mixture of relief and apprehension. At 28, she had learned that moments like this could quickly turn against her. She had grown up in Detroit, the daughter of a single nurse who worked 3 jobs to support them. She had known prejudice in all its subtle and explicit forms. Well, sir, Mr. Sterling continued, trying to regain his composure. We have standards to uphold. The other residents pay a very high condominium fee precisely to ensure a select environment. Select, Mr. Harrison repeated, savoring the word as if it were bitter. His eyes moved from Mr. Sterling to Elena, then to Mia, who was still holding a piece of the lollipop and watching everything with childlike curiosity. Elena decided to break the silence before the situation deteriorated further. Mr. Harrison, I apologize for the interruption. I know this is inappropriate and I assure you it won't happen again. Her voice was firm, dignified, without a trace of the submission Mr. Sterling had expected. Why would it be inappropriate? Mr. Harrison asked, surprising everyone. A polite child offering something sweet to a stranger? In what world is that considered a problem? Mr. Sterling realized he was losing control of the situation. With all due respect, Mr. Harrison, but we have protocols. Employees are not supposed to bring guests during working hours. It's a security issue. A security issue, Mr. Harrison interrupted, his voice carrying a dangerous note. A 5-year-old child poses a threat to the security of this building? Mia, unaware of the tension around her, tugged at Mr. Harrison's suit jacket. My lollipop is strawberry. It's my favorite flavor. What's yours? The innocent question created a surreal moment. Here was Mr. Harrison, the man whose decisions moved billions of dollars daily, being asked about candy preferences by a child. I don't think I've ever thought about it, he replied honestly, an almost vulnerable expression briefly crossing his face. Elena felt something stir in her chest. In that moment, she saw not the intimidating billionaire, but a man who had perhaps forgotten simple things like favorite lollipop flavors. Mr. Sterling, desperate to regain control, made his fatal mistake. Mr. Harrison, with all due respect, you can't allow these people to take advantage of your kindness. They know exactly how to manipulate situations to their advantage. The silence that followed was deafening. Mr. Harrison turned slowly toward Mr. Sterling, and Elena saw something cold and deadly in his eyes. These kinds of people, Mr. Harrison repeated, his voice low and dangerous. Elaborate. Mr. Sterling realized he had crossed a line, but it was too late to back down. People from certain backgrounds often use children to elicit sympathy and gain special benefits. It's an old tactic. Elena felt anger boiling in her veins, but she kept her composure. Years of experience had taught her that exploding at moments like this would only confirm the prejudices that people like Mr. Sterling carried. Mia, sensing the tension, moved closer to her mother and held her hand. Mommy, why is that man talking like that? It was that innocent question that broke something inside Elena. She bent down, kissed her daughter's forehead, and whispered, sometimes people say bad things when they're afraid, sweetheart. Mr. Harrison watched every detail of the interaction, seeing the quiet strength with which Elena protected her daughter, the dignity with which she faced humiliation, and something in his expression hardened even more. Mr. Sterling, Mr. Harrison said finally, his voice cutting like ice. I believe we have matters to discuss in private. Mr. Sterling swallowed hard, realizing he had made a mistake that could cost him dearly. Yes, sir. Of course. Elena began gathering her cleaning supplies, preparing to leave discreetly. But Mr. Harrison caught her again. Elena, he said, remembering her name from the hiring documents. Please continue your work. Mia can stay in the library. There are children's books there. Each word was spoken as a clear statement of where he stood in the situation. Elena nodded, feeling a strange mixture of gratitude and caution as he followed Mr. Sterling down the hall toward the office. Mr. Harrison glanced back one last time. Elena was bending down to talk to Mia, her gentle hands smoothing the girl's curly hair. There was something about that scene that touched a part of his soul he thought had died long ago. Mr. Harrison's office door closed with a soft click, but the silence that followed was charged with an almost palpable tension. Mr. Sterling tried to maintain his usual composure, but small beads of sweat betrayed his growing nervousness. "Sit down," Mr. Harrison said, his voice neutral as he walked over to the window that offered a panoramic view of Manhattan. Outside, the city bustled with millions of lives, each fighting their own daily battles. Mr. Sterling obeyed, settling into the Italian leather chair as he watched his boss's broad back. 20 years of managing luxury properties had taught him how to read wealthy people, but Mr. Harrison had always been an enigma. Today, however, there was something different in the air. "Tell me about your hiring protocols for employees," Mr. Harrison said without turning around. "Specifically, the criteria you use to determine who is suitable to work here." The question seemed simple, but Mr. Sterling sensed a trap hidden in the words. "Well, Mr. Harrison, we always prioritize professionals with solid references, proven experience, and of course, who fit the standard of excellence our residents expect." "Standard of excellence," Mr. Harrison repeated slowly. "Interesting. And how exactly do you define that?" Mr. Sterling swallowed hard. "Personal presentation, punctuality, discretion, ability to maintain residents' privacy." "Elena possesses all of those qualities," Mr. Harrison interrupted, finally turning to face Mr. Sterling. "So what exactly is the problem?" It was at that moment that Mr. Sterling made his second fatal mistake. Interpreting Mr. Harrison's calmness as tacit agreement, he leaned forward conspiratorially. "Let's be honest, Mr. Harrison. People like her, well, they always end up causing trouble. Today, it's a child. Tomorrow it'll be her unemployed boyfriend, then her relatives asking for favors. It's always the same with these people." Mr. Harrison remained silent for several long seconds, allowing Mr. Sterling's words to echo around the office. When he finally spoke, his voice had a cold quality that made Mr. Sterling realize he had crossed an irreversible line. "These people," Mr. Harrison repeated. "Go on." But before Mr. Sterling could respond, his phone rang. It was David Lee, his executive assistant and right-hand man for over a decade. A man whose unwavering loyalty and absolute discretion had been tested in countless delicate situations. "Excuse me," Mr. Harrison said. "David?" "Yes, I'm in a meeting, but you can talk." David's voice was clear and professional. "Mr. Harrison, I've completed the analysis you requested on the employee evaluations from the last 5 years. The results are revealing." Mr. Harrison had requested this analysis the previous week after noticing some subtle inconsistencies in Mr. Sterling's reports. What had started as a routine check now took on a whole new importance. "Send everything to my private email," Mr. Harrison said. "And, David, initiate a full audit of the hiring and firing processes, discreet but thorough." Mr. Sterling watched the conversation with growing discomfort, not fully understanding what was going on, but sensing that it wasn't good for him. When Mr. Harrison hung up, he turned his full attention to Mr. Sterling. "Now, where were we?" "Oh, yes. You were explaining to me about these people." On the other side of the door, in the library, Elena was helping Mia choose children's books from the elegant shelves. The girl was fascinated by the colorful illustrations, but Elena could hardly concentrate. Her mind was in the office where her career and her daughter's financial security could be decided at that very moment. "Mommy, do you think the tall man is nice?" Mia asked, holding up a book about forest animals. Elena paused, considering the question. "Why do you ask, sweetheart?" "He took my lollipop," Mia explained with childlike logic. "Bad people don't like candy." The innocence of the observation almost made Elena smile despite her anxiety. If only the adult world were as simple as a 5-year-old's perspective. In the office, Mr. Sterling was discovering that he had completely underestimated the situation. Mr. Harrison wasn't just a billionaire too busy to care about operational details. He was a calculating strategist who had built an $8 billion empire by observing patterns that others ignored. "You know, Mr. Sterling," Mr. Harrison said, sitting down behind his desk. "I've always admired your efficiency in keeping this building running, but recently I've begun to question some aspects of your methodologies." Mr. Sterling tried to keep his voice steady. "Mr. Harrison, if there are any specific concerns." "Oh, there are several," Mr. Harrison interrupted, opening his laptop. "For example, in the last 5 years, you fired or reassigned 17 employees. Interestingly, 14 of them were Black or Latino. The documented reasons range from cultural inadequacy to communication problems." Mr. Sterling's blood ran cold. He had never thought anyone would analyze this data together, much less look for patterns. That's pure coincidence, Mr. Harrison. I hire based solely on qualifications." "I'm sure you do," Mr. Harrison said, his voice thick with icy sarcasm. "And I'm sure it's also coincidence that the white employees you hire frequently receive raises and promotions, while the rest face unexplained performance issues." Meanwhile, David Lee was in his own office 3 floors below, compiling information that would reveal a network of systematic discrimination far more extensive than anyone could have imagined. The data showed a clear pattern. Mr. Sterling wasn't just a prejudiced manager. He was the architect of a system that kept ethnic diversity in the building to a minimum through subtle but illegal practices. David, who had grown up facing his own challenges as the son of Korean immigrants, recognized the tactics. He had suffered similar discrimination early in his career before Mr. Harrison discovered him and recognized his true potential. Back in the office, Mr. Harrison watched Mr. Sterling with the same cold intensity he used to evaluate business acquisitions. "You know what intrigues me the most? You actually believe that your actions went unnoticed, that you could build a discriminatory system right under my nose without consequences." Mr. Sterling finally understood the magnitude of his situation. He wasn't just facing a boss angry over an isolated incident. He was being confronted by a man who had uncovered years of illegal practices and was preparing a devastating response. "Mr. Harrison, I can explain." "Oh, you'll explain," Mr. Harrison said, closing his laptop. "To the lawyers, to the investigators, and especially to every person you've harmed with your systematic prejudice." David Lee entered the office carrying 3 bulky folders and a tablet, his serious expression contrasting with a controlled satisfaction in his eyes. "Mr. Harrison, the audit is complete. The results are devastating." Mr. Sterling felt his last hopes evaporate as David opened the first folder, revealing hundreds of pages of meticulously organized data. Colorful charts showed patterns that could not be explained as coincidence. Over the past 5 years, David began, addressing Mr. Sterling directly. "You have fired 17 employees for cultural inadequacy. 14 were Black or Latino. You hired 23 white employees for equivalent positions even when minority candidates were more qualified." Mr. Harrison watched Mr. Sterling with the same calculated coldness he used to destroy competitors in business. "Go on, David." "The pattern goes beyond hiring," David continued, turning pages. "White employees received average raises of 32% over 3 years. Black and Latino employees 7%, always with vague justifications about insufficient professional development. Mr. Sterling tried one last desperate gambit. "Those are just numbers out of context. You can't prove discriminatory intent." That's when David smiled for the first time, opening his tablet. "Actually, we can." The screen showed a messaging app. "Do you remember these conversations with other property managers in the area?" Mr. Sterling's face turned gray as he recognized his own messages. David began reading aloud. Message from Mr. Sterling to Robert Manning. September 23rd, got rid of another one. I used the communication problems excuse again. These guys never learn they don't belong in places like this. That's been taken out of context. Mr. Sterling shouted, but his voice sounded desperate. David continued relentlessly. Message from November 15th, the new policy is simple. Find any reason not to renew contracts. We have to maintain our standards. The residents pay good money not to have to deal with certain presences. Mr. Harrison stood up slowly and walked over to the window. When he spoke, his voice carried a coldness that made Mr. Sterling shiver. 23 years building this building as a symbol of excellence, and you've turned it into a monument to prejudice. And there's more, David added, opening the second folder. We've obtained statements from 11 former employees. They all document identical situations: systematic humiliation, sabotage of their work, creation of impossible situations to justify dismissal. Mr. Sterling realized there was no way out. Mr. Harrison, we can resolve this internally. There's no need to involve. Involve who? Mr. Harrison interrupted, turning with a cold smile. The lawyers who are already reviewing every contract you've ever signed. The Department of Housing that will receive a full report tomorrow morning? Or perhaps you're referring to the 23 media outlets that will receive detailed evidence of systematic discrimination in Manhattan's most expensive residential building? Reality hit Mr. Sterling like an avalanche. His 20-year career, his reputation in luxury real estate, his contacts, everything was being systematically destroyed. David opened the third folder. Then there's the financial irregularities. Search charges applied only to minority employees, fabricated administrative fees, unexplained payroll deductions totaling over $80,000 over the last 3 years. That's theft, Mr. Harrison stated simply. In addition to discrimination, you're a common criminal. Mr. Sterling tried to stand, but his legs gave way. You can't destroy me like this. I have a family, a mortgage. So did Elena, Mr. Harrison replied coldly. So did all the employees whose lives you ruined because you decided they weren't worthy of working in the same building you managed. David closed the tablet. The police will be here in 40 minutes to escort you out. All your access to the building has been revoked. Your personal belongings will be sent to your residence. But before that, Mr. Harrison added, you're going to do something you should have done years ago. He picked up the intercom phone. Elena, could you come to my office with Mia? There's something important she needs to hear. While they waited, Mr. Sterling attempted one last desperate negotiation. Mr. Harrison, if this becomes public, it will damage the reputation of the building as well. Think of the value of the apartments. Mr. Harrison laughed, a humorless sound that made Mr. Sterling cringe. You think I care more about real estate values than doing the right thing? When this story goes public, and it will tonight, this building will be known as the place where discrimination was exposed and eradicated, where justice triumphed. The door opened, and Elena entered hesitantly, holding Mia's hand. The girl still clutched the remains of her lollipop and smiled when she saw Mr. Harrison. Elena, Mr. Harrison said gently, I'd like you to hear this directly from Mr. Sterling. His eyes turned to Mr. Sterling with unrelenting harshness. Tell her about his standards, about how she and employees like her don't belong in places like this. Mr. Sterling stared at the floor, unable to lift his eyes. Has he lost his voice? Mr. Harrison asked sarcastically. Then I'll tell her. He turned to Elena. For 5 years, this man has built a system to prevent people like you from working here. He fired employees for being black or Latino, stole wages, created deliberately hostile environments. Elena listened silently, but her eyes filled with tears, not sadness, but validation. All the little humiliations, all the subtle comments, all the times she had felt she was being treated differently finally made sense. But today, Mr. Harrison continued, that ends. Mr. Sterling has been fired. He is being criminally prosecuted. And you, Elena, if you accept, I would like to promote you to assistant manager of this building with a salary that reflects the true value of your work. Mia, who had listened to everything with a limited understanding of a 5-year-old, approached Mr. Sterling. Why did you treat my mommy badly? She asked with devastating innocence. Mr. Sterling finally looked up, meeting Mia's pure, questioning gaze. In that moment, facing the simple question of a child who had offered him a lollipop without any prejudice, all the ugliness of his actions became undeniable. Police sirens could be heard approaching on the street 47 floors below. Mr. Harrison looked out the window and smiled. Not the cold smile from before, but something genuinely satisfied. "You know, Elena," he said, watching Mr. Sterling being escorted away by security. "There's something poetic about how this started with Mia offering something sweet to a stranger and ended up exposing the bitterness that infected this place." Elena hugged Mia tightly, finally understanding that that lollipop had been more than a childish gesture. It had been the catalyst that would change their lives forever. The dramatic downfall of Mr. Sterling and the rise of Elena Sanchez's family serve as a powerful testament to the fact that justice, while sometimes delayed, is always within reach. The story of a brave child and a single act of kindness proves that even the most deeply rooted prejudice and injustice can be dismantled when confronted with courage and truth. The legacy of this event is a community transformed, a testament to the fact that genuine worth is not about social status or background, but about integrity and the strength to rebuild in the face of adversity. This story is a poignant reminder that a single act of kindness can indeed change the world.